Show you something really cool here, which gives a lot of weight to this sign really being the Revelation 12 sign. Let me just give you a little bit of background on this if you're unfamiliar. We are told very clearly in Scripture, right out of the gate in Genesis 1:14, it says, then God said, this is during the creation period here, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, or that it's the expanse of the heavens, to divide the day from the night, okay? And let them be for signs, okay? So right out of the gate, the first thing he says is that the lights in the heaven, which are stars, the sun, the moon, the planets, which reflect light, all the lights in the heavens that we see from here, he put up there as one of the first things that he did. And one of the first things he said that four are for signs, right here. And then also talking about the second coming, talking about these these last days, our Messiah, this is red letter, so this is our Messiah talking. He says, there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars. And he goes on talking about the tribulation period, Daniel's 70th week. Some people have argued that looking in astronomy programs or looking into the heavens for signs is astrology. Well, it can be if you're doing it wrong, and if you're applying it to yourself, you're trying to like find some kind of wisdom or find, center yourself and get, all this self-worship nonsense. Yes, the enemy, Satan, has twisted these things. This is what's up in the sky. This is artwork from the Creator, and he clearly has just told us that he's put these things up there as for signs for us to learn about him. Arguably the first book in Scripture, the first book that was actually penned and written, was Job. And the Father is having a dialogue with Job. And one of the things that he says here in Job 38:31 through 33, he's talking about these constellations, okay? He says, can you bind the cluster of Pleiades? Can you loose the belt of Orion? Can you bring out Mazzaroth in its season? Mazzaroth, we know it to be the 12 constellations. Some people call it the zodiac, okay? That gets into astrology. But biblically, it's called, the 12 signs are called, the 12 constellations are called the Mazzaroth. Can you guide the great bear with its cubs? Okay? That's Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? And can you set their dominion over the earth? So the Father is putting Job in his place, saying, I made all this. And it's already been established. The Pleiades, Orion, the Mazzaroth, the Great Bear, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. All right, so again, now, then we go to Revelation 12, and it talks about a great sign and another sign. Okay, these are signs, these are signals to us that we should be paying attention to, which will give us an idea of where we are in the outline of time, of this great story that we're a part of. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I'm going to read this one more time. Stick with me, though, because I'm going to show you something you probably have not seen. Now, it says, now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars, and being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. All right, so we have a woman. It's a big sign, a woman, she's clothed in the sun. This is daytime, okay? I took off the atmosphere. If I put the atmosphere back on, you can see it's daytime. She's clothed in the sun, okay? She's got the moon at her feet. She's got 12 stars at her head. Leo's got 9 stars. And Venus, Mars, and Mercury. The only time this happens, I've searched the heavens for years and years and years and years. The only time this happens. 3 more stars. 9 plus 3 is 12. She's got this above her head, 12 stars, crowning her. She's giving birth. Well, how do we do that? That's what I'm gonna show you something that you haven't seen about this birth right here. Okay, Jupiter is known as the king planet in our solar system. Creation.com, okay, this obviously would be Christian astronomers are talking about Jupiter. It's the king of the planets and a testament to our creator. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. This gargantuan object dwarfs the Earth. And indeed, over 1,300 Earth-sized objects could fit inside Jupiter. Its mass is 2.5 times that of all other planets combined. It is massive. It is called the gas giant. Jupiter, the largest planet of the solar system. Jupiter was the key. This is why it's called in Christian astronomy, calls Jupiter the king planet, but so does regular astronomy and astrologers, because Jupiter was the king of the gods in Roman mythology. Okay, this alludes to the king of kings. Okay, you're gonna see how this connects. Even though it takes it out into pagan stuff, you can see how this all sort of connects. A fitting name for the largest of the planets, the king, right? In a similar manner, the ancient Greeks named the planet after Zeus, the king of the Greek pantheon. Okay, so this is the king planet in many different ways. This is a visual of the 22 chapters of the book of Revelation, all laid out in a timeline. Revelation is laid out in a chronological order. It is a vision that John had, and he talks about it as though it starts from the beginning. It has a middle and it has an end, just as you would tell any story, or if you were to tell a vision or a dream, it would start this way, this would be the middle events, and it would end this way. And that's how Revelation is laid out chronologically. This bar right here, orange, black, and red, are the parts of the tribulation period, also known as the time of Jacob's trouble, or Daniel's 70th week. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. This is the time of Israel's trouble and has nothing to do with the church. The church is mentioned almost 20 times in chapters 2 and 3, and then a picture of the rapture happens in chapter 4 when John is called, come up here, and then he goes directly into the throne room, which is exactly what happens after the rapture. We will be in front of the throne, standing in front of the Son of Man at the throne for the Bema Seat judgment, as evidenced by Luke 21:36. Watch and pray that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things. He's just been talking about this. So he says that there is an escape before this. He says, watch and pray that you might be counted worthy to escape all these things coming upon the earth and to stand before the Son of Man. Why? Bema Seat judgment and a wedding. So, this is the first half of the tribulation period, 11, 12, and 13. Everything in these chapters, if you just read it, this is at the middle point of this 7-year period. Very important time in this last week, Daniel's 70th week, a week of years. And we find everything very easily condensed into 3 chapters right here. You want to know what happens mid-trib? Go ahead and just read 11, 12, 13. It's all right there. Dead center of that is Revelation 12. 14 through 18 is called the Great Tribulation period because Satan is cast out of heaven. He's in a lower heaven right now. Many people ask, oh, I thought he was already kicked out of heaven. Well, he was kicked out of the high heavens, but he's in a lower heaven right now, right above our planet. He's the prince of the power of the air. So he gets finally kicked down. No place is found in heaven for him any longer, and that means he can't even get off the planet anymore, and he pursues the Israelis. He pursues the Jewish bloodline and anybody who obviously does not take the mark of the beast and bow to the beast and the world system. And so this is called the Great Tribulation period because Satan's wrath is physically on the earth at this time. He is physically on the earth at this time. So right here is where the Revelation 12 sign is. Let's go to it. This is what it is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you something that you have not seen before. Okay, so this is the king planet. What we're looking at is a depiction. Virgo, obviously, is named after and is a picture of the Virgin, Mary. Okay, and Jupiter's the king. Well, Mary gave birth as a virgin to the king. So this is this now this already happened, but we see that the tribulation period is considered his second coming is like a second birth. He's going to come again, and in a really big way, we've got a really big sign in the heavens to show that the woman is about to give birth, and he is about to come again physically to the earth. Now, this is the woman in Revelation 12 are the Israelis. It's the Jews. It's the Jewish bloodline. It was the Jewish bloodline, the line of David, that actually gave birth to our Messiah. Okay, he's Jewish. So this Virgo is a picture of a bigger picture of the Jews, and our Messiah came from them, came through that bloodline. All right, he is the Lion of the tribe of Judah as well. Now, what I'm going to show you here is something very interesting that I'm going to go back to 2016, and I'm going to go, we're going to zoom in right here, and try not to look at the artwork, but actually look at the constellation, the lines, and where the stars are. You notice that Jupiter right here is just about to cross this line and go into really the belly, the womb, so to speak, of Virgo at this time in 2016, in November 20th, 2016. Now, I'm going to play this forward here, and I'm going to show you something. Stay tuned. Jupiter goes into the womb of Virgo, goes into retrograde motion, turns around. We're watching Jupiter. Jupiter is moving, and we are also moving. So the planets appear to loop through the sky at times. Turns around and comes out. Okay, it does this. It does a loop right inside of Virgo. Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, based on, I'm going to bring that right sort of back to the line, just sort of bring it back another day here. So what we're looking at is November 20th, 2016 to September 9th, 2017. And this is the time that the king was in the belly of Virgo. You're going to find this fascinating, I think. If we study gestation, which is, I'll just read the definition right here. Gestation is the period of time between conception and birth. During this time, the baby grows and develops inside the mother's womb. Okay? Most people know that to be about 9.5 months. Okay? Gestational age is the common term used during pregnancy to describe how far along the pregnancy is. It is measured in weeks, from the first day of the woman's last menstrual cycle to the current date. Normal pregnancy, I'm going to highlight this, a normal pregnancy can range from 38 to 42 weeks. Now, on the early side of that, infants born before 37 weeks are considered premature. Infants born after 42 weeks are considered post-mature. All right, so we're looking at a time frame between 38 to 42 weeks. Now, I told you the time frame that we looked at here. Of course, we're at the end right here. We are at November 2017, November 9th, actually. And I started back here. So Jupiter's coming out of this line here. This is the birth canal between her hips, right? You can see that. And, of course, the planets and the moon, they always sort of cruise by this line here. And Jupiter entered right in over here, 2016, right about on like the 20th, just was coming in there, okay? So, if I punch in these numbers, and of course this is not an exact science, but it's pretty close. We're just watching it coming into and then coming out Virgo. Okay, now, take a look at this. So I punched in these dates, 11/20/2016. That's the entering date. And November 9th, 2017, that's the exit date. Remember what we're looking for. A healthy pregnancy is between 38 and 42 weeks. timeanddate.com. I've calculated this, and this is behind my picture, so I'll have to bring it up. The result here of between those two dates is 293 days, 9 months and 20 days. A typical pregnancy is about 9.5, which would be 9 months and 15 days. Look at that, 41 weeks. 41 weeks. A normal pregnancy can range between 38 and 42 weeks. 41 weeks. Jupiter, the king planet, is inside, I'll run it again, is inside Virgo. And amazingly, the only way that works is for the planet to go into retrograde motion, to loop around and come back, and then turn around again, and then come through the birth canal. It's perfect. Just a few days later, the entire sign shows up, because we have to wait until after the moon passes the sun, and we have to wait until these planets also come, adding three more stars. Remember, the Latin is aster planetes. Planetes means wandering. Aster is where we get the word star. Wandering stars. Biblically, planets are called stars because they're the wandering stars. And that's what Revelation 12 said, is that 12 stars are at her head. Right here. A garland of 12 stars on her head. So just after she gives birth, or Jupiter comes through the birth canal, we've got the moon at her feet, she's clothed in the sun, we've got 12 above her head, we've got the king coming out of the Virgin, all right? So, and it just so happens that this planet was perfectly inside of her for 41 weeks. Exactly what a healthy baby would be inside of its mother. And there are some people that say this sign is not what it is. This happens on September 23rd, 2017. It's a mid-trib sign. It happens right here. It's a mid-trib sign. That would be right here, September of 2017. Now, a sign doesn't have to be exactly at a certain point. A lot of times a sign is prior. On the highway, you know, you're given some time before your exit, right? The sign is not necessarily, the first time you see a sign, it's not at the exit, or you'd miss it. A sign is a lot of times prior to an actual event. So I think anywhere in here could be mid-trib events. But the sign is right here. Interestingly enough, as you've seen in my other videos, you count back 3.5 years. If we're talking mid-trib, it just so happens it's exactly where the beginning in the spring of where this other big sign in the heavens, which I'm sure you've seen on my channel. If you haven't, I have a Signs in the Heavens playlist, which will show you what I believe this lunar tetrad, prophetic lunar tetrad, but anytime in here, you can push the sign right here. You can push it into this area right here. There's a pretty interesting pattern happening right here. If we push the sign as though you view the sign is seen right here, but the actual events of the mid-trib don't start happening until in here, well, then that would mean that you've got to push the actual beginning of Daniel's 70th week. The confirmation of the covenant by the Antichrist with Israel, Daniel 9:27, would happen somewhere in here. I am not claiming any dates. I am showing an overall timeline, okay? And then, of course, if we count another 3.5 years, the return of Messiah would be somewhere around here. Interestingly enough, Joel 2:31. Joel 2:31 says, "The sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord." Before the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon will be turned to blood. That could be any of these, but I would imagine it may be this full solar eclipse right here. And it could be either one of these. Remember, this one right here is a supermoon. Watch my video on that. Totally fascinating. So we've got a before tribulation, a before Daniel's 70th week, before the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord is this entire period. Before, and some people say the day of the Lord is just his second coming. No, the day of the Lord, the day is not meaning 24-hour period. It means a time frame, as if you were to say, back in the day I was fit as a fiddle, but I've gained 20 pounds since. You're not talking about a specific day. You're talking about back then, who knows? It's a time period when you were fit as a fiddle. This is what the day of the Lord means. It means a time period. It means a 7-year period. It's well known as the day of the Lord, Jacob's trouble, Daniel's 70th week. It's the day of wrath. So we have a pre-trib sign, pre-day of the Lord sign. Joel 2:31 spells it out. And then Revelation 12, we have a mid-trib sign, which the woman clothed in the sun, with the moon at her feet, and 12 stars at her head, crowning her, in labor and in pain to give birth. That we have a mid-trib sign in the heavens. And then Matthew 24. In Matthew 24, this is the second coming. This is not the rapture. A lot of people say that Matthew 24, 29 through 31 is the rapture. I've already explained that and disproven that. There's some bad pastors who should not be teaching prophecy, or they should learn it before they teach it, who make videos and are confusing people. But it says right here in Matthew 24, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon shall not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. This is the second coming, okay? But it says the sun will be turned. The sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light immediately after the tribulation. So what we have here is we have a before the tribulation talking about eclipses. We have a sign in Joel 2:31. It's also in Acts chapter 2. And we've got a mid-trib sign in the heavens in Revelation 12, a number of mid-trib signs. And if you're looking for more signs, if you're wondering, if you keep reading in Revelation 12, from like 3 on, it says then there's another sign, a great red dragon. I have a video on that in my Signs of the Heavens playlist. Please watch that. Because I go and I show that there are more signs happening in the heavens. But I don't want to keep repeating and making the same video over and over. So we've got a pre-trib sign, we've got a mid-trib sign, and we've got a post-trib sign in the heavens. And what did it say? Again, in the same way, Joel 2:31 said that the sun will be darkened and the moon will be turned to blood. And in Matthew 24:29 says, after the tribulation, the sun shall not give its light, and neither will the moon, which are solar and lunar eclipses. Okay, I just wanted to show you that. Please, if you haven't seen my other videos on my Signs in the Heavens playlist, there is so much. There's so much information out there. But I just wanted to show you that Jupiter is in the womb of Virgo in 2016 and 2017 for 41 weeks, 9.5 months, a perfect gestation period. Surprise.
G'day, how you going? God bless you. Today I'd like to talk about the Revelation chapter 12 verses 1 and 2 heavenly sign that's occurring on the 23rd of September 2017 and just how rare that sign is. Basically it's very rare. It occurs only once in 7,000 years. And man's history is believed to only run a course of 7,000 years, so that's why I've only checked 7,000 years. I've checked 6,000 years into the past and 1,000 years into the future. And this chart here that you see before you, I'll provide a link to some videos that I've done in regards to this chart if you'd like to look further into the chart. But a lot of my chart relies heavily on this 23rd of September 2017 sign, so I thought I'd look into how rare it is. I've heard some people have checked 200 years into the future, 150 years into the future, and they haven't found the sign occurring. So this week I've done an analysis of just how rare it is, and we'll just have a look at have a look at the sign, Stellarium, and I'll just bring up the date window. We've got 2017, September the 23rd, and we've got, as I've already pointed out, these 3 stars here, or the planets in Regulus, all in alignment. We've got Jupiter, Moon at her feet. Now, I'll just turn off these features here, and I'll just show you what happens with Jupiter. You can see Jupiter here as it goes forward, and it does a loop to loop. So if I go forward now, you can see it coming down, and it just basically does this motion. It goes around and around and around and around. So that occurs. So what that means is that if I put the artwork in the constellation, so for example the quadrangle here that marks the womb of the constellation, if I just bring it back, you can see that Jupiter swings around in the womb of the constellation. So that retrograde motion that occurs, and we'll just step back away from that and explain retrograde motion. I'll leave a link to this web page in the description box below. Basically, I'll just read what it says here. Such gyrations are called retrograde motion if it occurs because the Earth is moving faster than Jupiter on an inside track. The same effect can be seen when you pass a slower moving car on the freeway. The car appears to move backwards against the background, even though you're both moving forward. So we've got Earth in the inside track, and we've got Jupiter on the outside track. And as Jupiter comes around here, Earth looks at Jupiter, and then because it's going faster, it appears that it's moving back and forwards. Just watch it here at that point. So it just swirls back and forward. So that's what retrograde motion is. So if we go back to here, you can see the retrograde motion occurring in the womb. All right, so that event only takes place every 83 years. Jupiter's orbital period is 11.86 years, or 12 years approximately. So 12 sevens are 84, but because it's 11.86, it works out to 83 years that Jupiter swings back around into the constellation's womb. Now, if I just add some, half of 84 is approximately 40. So if I add 40 years to this total, you can see Jupiter here, and I'll just back it up. And you'll see that Jupiter, see it's starting to turn back in its retrograde motion there. And then we go forward, and it moves right through the constellation's womb, and then comes back around, and it doesn't quite get to the womb, and it starts turning around again. So that's an example of how Jupiter doesn't meet the requirement of passing in through the womb, circling through the womb for the period of 9.5 months, or 42 weeks, or 294 days. So basically in the 7,000 years, I'll just go to the spreadsheet. I'll come back to the Stellarium in a minute. I began the spreadsheet looking at the first 70 years from the birth of Christ. So we've got clothed in the sun occurring in this column here, so that always occurs. So down to year 78, and then we've got the crown of 12 stars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 times in 80 years, basically, a crown of 12 stars occurs. So I just started somewhere and started looking at how often the crown of 12 stars occurs. So 1 in 8, basically, 10 in 80 years. So then I realised that I looked at the orbital periods of other planets, and I realised that only Jupiter is able to provide us with that 9.5 months in the womb factor. Saturn does a retrograde motion of 12 months, Uranus 23, Neptune 59, Mars is only half a month, Venus is a quarter, and Mercury is 0.22. So the other planets just don't fit. So I knew that Jupiter was the month that I needed to be looking at. And as I said, because of that retrograde motion, it only occurs every 83 years through that area. And then I checked the 12 years either side of that. So just to give an example, I've got tabs along the bottom here. I'll make this spreadsheet available in the description box below. And with this year here, so that year is 3914 minus 3914, which is equivalent to 3915 BC. So if I go to the Stellarium program and I put in negative value, -1, you can see that it has a 0. So normally if you go from 1 AD to 1 BC, there's no 0 in between, but with the Stellarium program there is. So as we go through, that's so 0 is 1 BC, that's 2 BC, that's 3 BC. So I'll just check the number again. 3914 is the number I need to put in there. 3914, and we're looking at the constellation Virgo, and we'll just go back. So we've got Venus, Saturn and Mercury, and we'll just go forward. We've got the sun coming down, we've got the moon up here. So we've got the moon here, clothed in the sun. Just go forward in days, hours I should say. Right, so we've got the moon at her feet, Jupiter's just exiting the womb, and clothed in the sun, we've got Mercury, Venus and Saturn and Regulus all in alignment. So it's very similar to the sign from 2017. The only problem is that Jupiter is only in the womb for 144 days. So if I just show you, if you just watch Jupiter's motion, it's not in the womb for as long a period of time. So that's how far I've checked. And just one other point was with the moon. If I put the time on, you'll see the moon coming through, and see how it's close to the feet there. Now if I increase the years, and I just increase the time as well. Oops, that's too fast. Alright, so if I increase the years, you can see the moon is coming through at this point here now, instead of being close to the feet. It's there, so I'll just increase it by another year. So that's the other thing that makes all these alignments difficult. You know, the moon isn't always at the feet of the constellation, and so here's Mercury and Venus and Mars all coming in, and they all do their own retrograde motion and things as well. So for all these things to line up, it's pretty amazing. So I'll just stop that. I'll just pause that and just go back